Like, what is it that you're trying to move kids towards?
That's the most important question. Hey everyone, welcome back to Rough Cut Faith,
Nice.
the place where Scott and I get an opportunity to say, hey, that's not in the Bible.
Not in the Bible? That was, oh, wait, I forgot the wrong one.
Wait, what? You're so delayed on that.
I'm slow.
Pardon me, sir, I don't believe
Pardon
that's
me?
in Scripture.
Do you happen to have any misquotes from Scripture? But of course.
But of course I do. Wow, this gets weirder as we go along. Yeah.
I grew up with Grey Poupon commercials.
What does that have to do? The way your brain just makes
Do you
connections.
have any
is
misquotes from
amazing.
Scripture?
Yes.
Oh, but of course.
but
And
of
open up
course
the
I
glove
do.
box and pull one out for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I drove around with a little mini Grey Poupon mustard in my glove box as a kid, in case somebody would
just
ask me,
hoping?
so that I
Just
could
hoping?
just be like, oh, but of course.
Did you ever just hold it? Hello?
Yeah, probably not.
That's fantastic.
Only to show my friends.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, look, there's Grey Poupon in there.
That's not around
I'm a
anymore, is
classy
it?
West Virginian.
I have Dijon ketchup.
All
In
right.
West Virginia, that's like a third condiment. What are you doing?
You forgot gravy.
Yeah, I know. That's a staple. That's not a
That's
condiment.
not a condiment. That's
Yeah.
a protein.
Yeah, it's a food group in West Virginia.
It's good, man. I'm telling you, it's hard to find good gravy up here. It's true. It's so true. Tell my people
yeah.
from the South, you know it's hard to find
Yeah.
good gravy north of the Mason-Dixon.
Is it? It's just as hard to find good pizza south of the Mason-Dixon.
Yeah, I'll give you
Yeah,
that. It's true.
I'll take pizza over gravy.
Yeah.
But
I'd
being
have to
from the
think
South,
about
you
it.
may not.
I'd have to think
That's
about
true.
it. Good
That's true.
sausage, biscuits, and gravy, or a chipped beef and gravy. Yeah, all right. Anyway, so to our topic.
So on to the topic for today.
Beef gravy and sausage gravy is not in the Bible.
No, it's not. We're discussing the culinary misconceptions of the Bible today.
Shellfish.
I like my bacon and shellfish pasta. Okay, so today we are not talking about food anymore. We're going to be discussing.
No one spared the rod with us. Or they spared the rod.
There's no
Yeah.
discipline.
Oh,
There's no
man.
discipline here.
Yeah.
So one of the things transitioning. That's our transition.
That's the
sound.
transition. It's like
Yeah.
an audiobook.
Yeah, yeah. We're
Yeah,
gonna put
the
that
topics
in.
change when
The
you hear
topics
the
change.
sound.
Flip the page.
Yeah, that was good.
All right.
All right,
yeah.
we'll see you next week.
Too many disconnected connections for
Yeah.
me. My brain's blowing up.
Yeah.
That's what it's like to be in your brain.
This is my brain all the time.
I can't do it.
This is why you don't talk to me.
This is why you're tired all the time. That's why.
probably.
Yeah, so after all of that, now we're getting to our topic today. It's a topic that has come up we grew up with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's has to do with kids, so it's a little more specific than we've
Yeah.
talked about. Not an idea so much as just a demand.
Yeah.
That's spare the rod and spoil the child.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
something we both experienced as kids.
Yeah. Usually after you got to pick your own switch out.
I did get to pick mine. No, there was a very distinct one that was often used.
Yeah. No, we didn't. We were just warned about that's how it used to be.
Yeah. And isn't it great that you don't have to pick your own
Yeah.
now? Because I have this one, and yeah.
Is it weird to joke about here knowing the sound of a leather belt cracking?
Oh, my dad never did that. That was not
it wasn't my dad. It
experience.
was my mom.
Yeah, the leather belt.
Yeah, you knew you were upset because if dad was away at work and you heard your name and a leather belt, like, you were like, oh no!
Yeah, I think there's a generation of kids with PTSD from hearing leather belts snap. Yeah.
That's the way it is, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the damage that's caused.
Well,
I mean, origin-wise, it's us.
it's us.
It's Gen X and before, really.
Yeah. Wow.
A little bit of the millennials experience
Yeah.
it too. But the that whole concept, the wording itself, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah.
doesn't come from anything in the Bible.
Yeah.
It comes from a poem.
Yeah. I was surprised it was from the 1600s.
Yes.
Which is probably why we think it's in the Bible as evangelical Christians in the
People
West.
think Shakespeare's in the Bible because it was old and sounded churchy.
It sounds King James-ish.
Yeah. So it's from a poem that wasn't about children or discipline. It was about love, and I don't know the poem well enough to talk about it.
Please cite it for me, Michael.
I know that stanza.
Well, you know poetry from the 1600s.
Yes, because I do research like you do.
Yeah.
But it's often associated. So this "spare the rod, spoil the child" often gets associated with a passage from Proverbs, which says, I'm going to paraphrase it a bit, but it says, if you spare the rod of discipline, you hate your children. If you love your children, then you will discipline them. So that got turned into the only way to truly love your kids is to beat them.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Yeah.
And that like we've turned discipline into something that is physically painful.
Yeah.
So why I'm the first question I have is why did we do that? Like why is physical pain?
This is why interpretation of specific words matters.
Yes.
Right? Because discipline for as you say, discipline, I don't think of guidance, instruction, correction. I think I'll hear correction and and correction through physical discomfort.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But in the Proverbs, like the rod of correction, it's instruction, it's discipline, it's guidance. It's not like just a physical consequence. It's the role of hey, listen, if you don't love your kid, you're just going to let them go through life on their own.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to provide correction. You're not going to provide guidance. You're not going to show them the path to a God-honoring way of life. And so it's that's a very different,
it's an entirely different
way of thinking. And yet for now, I think the thing that, well intended, but I think the way people thought you provide guidance is by aversion to things. And so how are we going to make somebody averse to certain behaviors? No, we'll just make it really uncomfortable if they get caught. And then we just became a better generation of liars.
Yeah. Well, that was what as I was thinking through this, I was thinking about how the response of myself as a kid is just to hide more.
Yeah.
I don't want to get caught. I haven't been shown the right way to do anything.
Yeah.
I haven't been actually guided through life. I mean, as a child, I was just spanked when I did something wrong.
Yeah.
So don't hit your sister.
Yeah.
And I remember, I'll give an example of the juxtaposition between how we handled some things with our kids and how my parents may have. And this isn't to say my parents did anything wrong in this. They just had one way of doing things.
Sure.
And everybody was scared. I mean, you're a parent, I'm a parent.
Yeah.
You have this kid in your home and you're like, oh, I'm responsible now for everything.
Yeah.
And the fear, I remember when I brought my son home and sitting on the bed and just holding him and being like, all right, I can handle this right now. I don't know how to leave the room with him, but I can hold him on the bed, and that's about all I know how to do at this point. So it makes sense that as a parent, you're kind of out there going, what helps? How do I do this? And then there's, in the 70s, you had Focus on the Family. James Dobson wrote, I think, Dare to Discipline. It was the first book. Prior to that, there really wasn't much written about raising children. Yeah. And once the evangelical world started saying, oh, we could write books about kids, then it exploded through the 70s and 80s. And they were all pretty much on this same level of spanking is the way to do it. Yeah. Corporal punishment is the way to beat character out of your kid, into your kids. Yeah. You can't. And that's I think where they fall is you can't beat character into somebody. So I'm giving that as a preface to I understand why parents did this. Sure. without really thinking, is there a better way?
Mm-hmm.
So when my parents would spank us, if I did something, threw something at my sister or got into a fight with a sibling, I'd get a spanking.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was never fair.
Yeah.
So I was always,
It's
I'm the
usually
oldest.
how it works with older sisters.
Yeah.
Or
I had
you
younger sisters. Yeah. So I was always the bigger one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got spanked. Sometimes they did. Um, and so then it just meant I had to get like more sneaky about how I took my revenge on my sister.
Mm-hmm.
If she pinched me, then I had to do something mean to her that would be like mean enough, but not enough to get yelled at for her to yell at me or something. It just creates a sneakier way to do things.
Yeah.
There was one conversation I had with my son after he had been annoyed with his sister.
Yeah.
And she was probably like 4 or 5. So he was a few years older.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent him to his room. I always try to get distance from everybody and let everybody cool down. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I said, this is your only sister.
You've had that word.
I've had that conversation.
I think I stole that from you one day. I think I did.
Yeah.
I think I remember hearing this.
I said, this is your only sister. She's going to be your sister the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Your relationship with her matters.
Yeah.
And your relationship now with her, matters for the rest of your life. How you guys work together now.
Yeah.
And of course he was crying and he felt bad. Then he tells me, well, now I feel really bad. But that is what struck me, was that he actually was remorseful.
Yeah.
Because of the relationship breakdown.
Yeah.
Because I pointed out this reality that you have to have this relationship with her.
Yeah.
And how you have that relationship now will affect how it goes in the future.
Yeah.
And that shifted. I can't say it immediately shifted, but it did shift the way that we engaged around those things. So it was instructive and pulled towards character development.
Yeah. That's, we've just kind of tried to piggyback off of what you've done with your kids because they're just a little bit older than ours. So, we're learning from your mistakes and what all has worked well for you. And we're like, I'll say the difficult part was I grew up, in a home where my father was a drill instructor in the Marines. So it was high expectations, like high control environment for most of what I remember growing up. I don't remember a lot of like physical correction as a child. What I do remember was the fear of physical correction.
Oh, yes.
Right. I remember just being like, I'm going to get in so much trouble. I'm going to get, I'm going to get murdered or I'm going to get killed, with this one.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't think my parents ever, I really don't remember a lot of that, but I remember the sense of palpable fear if I did something wrong. And so we've tried to, and my wife grew up not necessarily in that environment, but still another one that was like our view of parenting our kids is very different than what we've tried. Right. Yep. And so when they were little, my wife is very much a talker and a processor with the kids. So, from the time that they were little, she'd just be like, that's inappropriate. She would have like big adult conversations with them when they were little. And some people would be like, they don't understand. She's like, oh no, they do. And I'm like, okay, well, but we watched the dynamic of it develop over the years. And, when you don't have a lot of tools to address like behaviors that aren't desirable for kids. Yeah. The easiest thing to fall back on is physical correction. Yes. Like it doesn't take engaging brain. It does involve control if it's not like crazy, abusive, but it's easier to just do this in the sense of I know what to do. This is the consequence. I don't like it. They don't like it. But I don't know what else to do. Yeah. And you described create the space, go try and process after the space is done.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and I think what the beauty of that is that is discipline, that is guidance,
right,
that
yeah.
is discipline, that is instructive
Mm-hmm.
and corrective.
Yeah.
But there's a like what is it that you're trying to move kids towards?
That's the most important question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you see a lot of physical discipline,
Mm-hmm.
I think the goal is control.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like. It will be under the guise of guidance. It'll be
Mm-hmm.
under the guise of, well, I want to discipline them.
Yeah.
Like these kids need discipline. If they don't pay attention to me, how are they going to pay attention to anything else
Mm-hmm.
in life? How are they going to like listen to any type of authority?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, it was always under this. It was kind of couched under this. Well, if they don't do this with me, how are they going to listen to God?
Yeah.
Which then,
Yeah.
like that's a whole other
Religious
issue that
baggage.
that's a whole other issue that
Yeah.
we probably should deal with too. But I think it comes down to a power struggle, and that, like you and I have both worked with kids,
Yeah.
in different environments, in
Mm-hmm.
a mental health environments, and
Mm-hmm.
assisting them, and that's one of the things that I remember taking away over and over again
Yeah.
from the trainings is don't get into a power struggle with
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. They will be masters at attacking the things that you value.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if it's just your peace and your sanity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Somehow they can do that.
Yeah.
But I remember, you go to work during
Yeah.
the day in this setting, and you're like trying to talk through things.
Yeah.
And you're using positive reinforcement. You're trying
Yep.
to engage with kids in a way that doesn't re-traumatize them
Yep.
because they've come from damaging situations. And then
You come home.
you come home and like yell at your kids. Like, wait, that's not like. This
I
is what's
never
going on.
experienced that,
You didn't do that?
at all.
No.
No, I yeah. That was like, where most of my guilt came from in that season of life was, why am I so patient with these strangers' children?
Yeah,
And I come
yeah.
home and my kids get like the angry dad.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, it was upsetting my peace.
Yeah,
It was about
yeah.
what I wanted, not what was best for my kids in that moment.
Yeah, and that's like what you said about what you want the end result to be is so critical. And I've heard church leaders, Christian leaders say, you have to win.
Yeah.
Say that use those words. This is a power struggle with your kids. You can't let your kids win.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to win.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is so damaging.
Yeah.
Because when you're constantly fighting your kids for power, I mean, that puts you at the same level as an immature child then. Yeah. Because you're just saying, I'm bigger and I'm stronger and I'm going to beat you into submission.
Yeah.
And that means I win. Yeah. What kind of Christ-like character is being exemplified and shown in that situation then?
Yeah, it's difficult for people who are raising younger children to remember that in the moments when like kids expose your faults
Right.
and your shortcomings
so much.
Like consistently. And I think that's probably why it's easier to just be upset.
Usually we're angry with ourselves as much as we're angry with the kids
like you come like I'm one of these things is like if I have a long or a stressful day, I usually try to front load or with my kids to go, hey, listen, guys, I've had a really stressful day. I'm really tired. I'm not feeling well. I am just like I've got thin margins. Can you please just like when I say things today, can you just be aware? Because I don't want to yell at you, and I don't like it. And I know you won't like it, and I don't have a lot of patience. And they're like, "Oh, okay." They're like, "Oh, Dad's vulnerable."
Oh, where's the wound?
And then I'm like, and then I'm like, "Why are you doing this?" Right? Because I sit there and I go, "I don't want to put my hands on you." But then you're yelling. Which isn't any better,
right?
It's still
emotional. It's an emotional lashing.
And so it's so I say all of this in this context because it's like, okay, who I am today as a parent is different than who I was when my, almost 15-year-old was 5. Um, I really think I probably will have this sorted out in about 30 years. So
you'll be able
I'm
to
making progress.
your children and how to help their kids.
I'll help. Yeah, I'll be that parent. I'll be
You'll
like,
be helping
listen,
the grandkids.
just don't worry about it. Let it go, guys. No,
Yeah.
but it's that sense of like, I don't say any of this stuff like I've got it sorted out, because I understand the struggle. Of going like we want our homes to be peaceful. We want, if you have kids or grandkids or family with kids and they've got siblings, you want them to get along. Right. And there are days where kids are just kids. You got to understand some days they're going to just antagonize each other and anybody around. And then there's different developmental stages where it's appropriate for them developmentally, or it's normal. I'll say it's normal for them to push boundaries, to figure out where is my place, who am I, right? And so there's all of these developmental milestones that take place in the life of a person. Well, that's not a character thing. How you respond to it in the midst of it is probably more shaping of their character than we think it is. And so it's a matter of like, I think if there's one thing that I'm really grateful for, that I can look at this point. There's not a lot of things where as parents I can sit back and go, I think we're doing okay.
We nailed this.
Most of the time I feel like, did I screw them up too much, right? But one of the things that gives me hope is that we have, even if there's an argument in the home or if there's correction, there's still opportunity for us to talk, and the kids will still engage with us at an emotional level, not just you annoy me, right? Like the fact that my kids can voice their opinions to my wife and I makes me go, I don't like this at all, but I'm really glad that they have an opportunity to say, hey, I don't think this is fair that you're doing this. Can you help? Like, why do I get this and she doesn't? Or why does she get to do that and I don't? And they're pushing back and they're saying like, why are you so angry? Or why did you yell about this? And I'm like, okay, my kids still talk to me and they still will have a respectful conversation not necessarily in the moment, but in the aftermath as we're trying to process,
as you process
where
it.
Was the breakdown in the relationship, right? And so that is one of those little things that kind of just gives me the sense of like, okay, it's going all right. Like when we're not overly permissive parents. Like my kids feel like they feel like we watch Little House on the Prairie. They're like, I remember what that's like. It happened last week, like that's not the way it is, But they feel like that. And yet we can still have those conversations that you could never even imagine. Like, kids in on that show in particular, it's like, oh, children should be seen and not heard. They don't talk at the table. They don't voice any disagreement, although it happens in the TV. Like, it's like, oh, what is that? And it's like, oh, no, my kids have a different experience than what I had. It's okay for them to voice their disagreements with us. And it's on us to not shame them for asking questions, because it's like what we do for our kids is investing in their future relationships with either their partners, their spouses, or their kids. It's like we're trying to help them have a new way to see things that's different than the way we experience. That's at least in our family. That's what we're trying to do.
And I think that's that eye to the future is what's most important. I've started calling it raising adults rather than raising kids because we want to raise the kids into adults. I don't want to just raise kids to be kids. I think that there's so like what you described was discipline. What you described we have these conversations, they push back, we communicate well. When a child is afraid of getting physically punished, when they grow up with that fear, and depending on who the parent is, pushing back can be seen as disrespect. It can be seen as something that, like, don't question me or you get another spanking. Don't ask me why this isn't fair because life isn't fair. I'm just going to I'm just going to give you more discipline if you ask questions.
Yeah.
So as a child who's afraid to push back and engage in that way, they will grow up being an adult who doesn't know how to talk to other people, who can't communicate effectively, who just could get walked all over.
It's like you try to raise kids that are independent thinkers and capable to, process things on their own.
Yep.
And then when they are independent thinkers from you and processing things on their own apart from you, you're like, no, that's not the way this works.
Yeah, no.
I'm the parent, you're the child, right?
Yeah.
It's
you have to process things the way I do. That's like the innate when you're spanking them for asking questions, pushing back, you're telling them you have to think the way I do in order to get my love, in order to get affection.
Which really comes back to really the wisdom of the Proverbs. In saying to raise your kids in a way that instructs them and guides them and leads them into like a flourishing life. Is to provide the guidance. And it's more than just physical correction. It's more than just like a negative discipline. I'm sure if you read scripture, I'm sure you will see evidence of of discipline in a negative consequence for things. But ultimately, you tend to see more of what is the character development? What is it like? And a lot of the consequences come from people like knowing the right way, but choosing to go a different way. And so it's more like, well, if you pursue this way of life, the consequences are the consequences of that way of life.
Right.
It's not necessarily like it's just a very different mindset to look at the way you raise your kids is about providing the guidance for them to live wisely. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And then you look at some of the other Proverbs that talk about you instruct them in the way that they're bent or the way that they're inclined. So you figure out like which kid, what works with each kid, right? And you provide the instruction for them in a way that makes sense for them. So my son is very different than my daughter. And I don't provide instruction and guidance in the same way based on who they are, right? I like for my son, I can lead with like a little bit of like lightheartedness and goofiness. With my daughter, it's got to lead with heart. It's got to lead with like a sensitivity and listening and presence long enough for her to feel like, okay, I can talk. Because she won't open up, right? And so you look at until she feels like I'm gonna have the time and the attention. Then I'll open up when that's there. But if it's like, boop, 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 so it's just different. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that. But
because it's relational. And I think that when you can form the earlier you can form that relational connection with your kids, the better it goes throughout adulthood. And if your only interaction with them is disciplinary, then that's all they know from you. And I think that goes back to what we said a little while ago that I think we need to come back to is when like your children, especially at a young age, they don't understand theology. They don't understand God. They don't understand Jesus. They don't understand what a Trinity is. They don't understand all of these things. But they understand you as a parent, and they get to know you as a parent. And I can't think that there hasn't been. I can't imagine how much untold damage has been done over the decades when a parent sits and says, "This is what God is like," and then spanks their kids because they were being kids. Certainly, correction needs to happen. Certainly, you can't let a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old just go on their own and figure things out and hurt others and hurt themselves. And you can't be a parent that just throws their hands up and be like, "Well, natural consequences." going back to Proverbs
Yeah.
13, that's like, if you hate your kids, then don't
Yeah.
don't give them any discipline, which is don't give them any instruction or direction. Or
Yeah.
sometimes there's harder consequences that have
Mm-hmm.
to happen. Uh, but for a kid to come into that, to know the relationship with God as just disciplinarian, as just the one who is waiting.
Yeah.
When I screw up, then there's pain.
Yeah.
How many of those kids grow up and maintain a connection in church, grow up with a character that is loving and kind to people? Because who we believe God to be shapes our character. It shapes how we engage with the world around us.
Yeah.
So if we believe that God is a disciplinarian, a strict disciplinarian that always has to win, that always has to put us in our place, and it's just doesn't really interact with us unless we screw up, and then he comes in hard. Well, that's our view of God, and that means that we will engage with the world in that way.
As you were describing that, I remembered a conversation that I had with my son probably over the summer that really like brought that front and center to me, because he was talking about like, you guys only talk about the things where I mess up. Like that's like, I don't really like, if I do good, I don't necessarily hear that I did good on something. And I was like, so, we were back and forth, and I'm like, well, it's not that we're not aware of those things, and we do try to say those things. So I think maybe your perception is off a little bit, but I said, I said something to the extent of, the one creature in this household that hears "good boy," like "great job," a lot is our dog.
The dog,
and the others, the rest of us don't necessarily hear that very much, and that just hit me really, really hard. That I can have a home where the being that provides the most affection and love in the family and also hears, "You're such a good boy. You're such a good guy. We just love you," and gets that showered on him. Is the dog and not my kids. And that really just made me pause for a moment and go, "Oh, I gotta be really, really intentional." Because some things don't come naturally, or as naturally as we would like them to. And so we have to be intentional about it. We have to be intentional fathers, intentional mothers, and establishing relationship and praise and guidance and instruct. Like the instruction comes easier when there is relational intimacy.
And I would say that that's harder.
Yep.
That requires a lot more effort and a lot more emotional energy and a lot more time to see things actually play out. Because when you just look at spanking a child when they do wrong, when you just look at winning as the end result, as the goal, that's easy. That's quick. It's just over
uncomfortable
with.
for the moment.
It's uncomfortable.
And you move on.
It's awkward, but the more you do it, the more you get used to it. So you just kind of like, well, this is the thing we do. And the kid's acting up. We take them over here. We spank them a few times. They cry. We tell them Jesus loves them, and it hurts us more than it hurts them. And then we go back to whatever we're doing. And meanwhile, the kid's traumatized. They don't understand that. They don't understand why your parent that you're trying to please, that is supposed to be the one safe person in your life that you know of, is now causing pain and hurting you. And I don't think that kids will ever get that. I think that they can, we can joke about it as adults. Because we learn to process things sometimes in a healthy way.
With dark humor.
With sarcasm and dark humor, yes. But you look back at that and go, I don't think that was good for me. I don't think that helped. It did sway my behavior.
Sure.
But if changed behavior is the only goal, then it'll work. Because force does change behavior, but it doesn't change character. And if we want our kids to have character, to have good character, to mature as adults that are well developed and functional and with displaying good character and can communicate well and have good relationships and know what a bad relationship looks like and feels like and know what a good relationship looks like and feels like. If we want those things, that's going to take a lot more time and effort, and energy, but it's better for them, and that's what instruction and guidance looks like.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
It's good stuff, not easy stuff.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave this saying, well, as a parent, like, you should feel guilty because you spanked your kids, or that it's something that you need to, now wallow around in shame.
Well,
It's some, like, well, getting back to the point. Spare the rod, spoil the child is not a biblical concept.
It's nowhere in the Bible.
It's nowhere in the Bible. We can take 3 verses from Proverbs and that talk about discipline, and we can just take them without like exploring them, without actually understanding them, and misconstrue it into this concept of, well, if it means that if I don't spank my kids, then I don't love them. That is not what those verses mean. It's not what discipline means. It's not what guidance looks like. And so we can't make that the template by which we engage with our kids.
Sure. I would encourage people that have kids or parenting that maybe your toolbox is pretty small and that physical discipline is a part of it. Like, just ask yourself, am I intentionally looking for other ways to provide guidance and correction? Or is this just what's easy? And it's not like, because when we first started having kids, that was like that was all we really knew. It was like, oh, that was what we had experienced. So we had to learn to move away from that. And to be able to go like, okay, well, hold on. I want something different for our kids. My wife and I wanted something different for our kids. And so you've really got to intentionally pursue something different. But it's not motivated by the shame of it. That could be crippling. Right? But it is motivated of like, okay, so if God can extend grace to people, if God can extend mercy to people, then embrace that and move forward. Like, go like, listen, I'm going to pursue something different because I think God's best for my kids or for our kids looks different than what I experienced.
Yes.
Right. And the passages, as you said, that got pulled from semi-conceptually to become that phrase that everybody assumes is there. The spirit of that is about not just abandoning your children to whatever they want. But providing correction and instruction and guidance, because you yourself are pursuing God's best. And so you're trying to provide that for your kids as well.
The kids are emulators, like, all the way from as young as they are all the way up. And I find myself engaging with Brendan, my 19-year-old, in the same way that my father engaged with me, probably around that age. And it's so weird. Because I thought I'm such a different person than my dad. And then I'm like, we were just doing a project last night, and I realized that I was like, the cadence with which I was speaking to Brendan and being like, yeah, you got to do this over here. So go ahead and pull that. Yep. Get that tight over there and pull this on this way. I'm like, man, this sounds like my dad talking. And so I'm emulating my dad at 46 in ways that I would have never thought 40 years ago that I would. And that just struck me again as this reality that the way you treat your kids is the way they'll treat you. So you can't be this person that walks into the room and starts screaming and yelling, and then wonder why they scream and yell like 5 years later at 15 or 16, if they're engaging with you in a way that's angry or aggressive.
Yeah.
And you think back, 10 years ago, that's how I treated them when I was mad.
Yeah. It's what's that phrase? There's a book that we've read several times where the author has said, Jesus is in my heart, but grandpa's in my bones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
it's so true. You sit
Yeah.
there and you're like, oh, my family of origin really has shaped the way I engage.
Yep.
More than we want it to sometimes.
Yeah.
And so we have to be intentional about pursuing something different.
I think this is a good place to end. The reality of that, that if you want to give good instruction and guidance to your kids, it starts with how you engage with them. It starts with how your character is formed and shaped and guided.
Yeah.
And as you model that, as you model that, they emulate that. And it's not it doesn't start with a spanking. It starts with, here's how I'm engaging. Now, you're not engaging this way. Where's the disconnect? Like, why is that not happening? Let's figure that out. Let's guide that in this direction.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for experimenting on your kids before mine needed it.
Which is the right words. Because I feel like it's all improvised. It's all experimentation. And that's why I don't really like parenting books or even parenting advice, because every child is different. And you can't just be like, well, I've written this book. This is the way to raise them.
Here's the 7 steps to a wonderful child.
It's the 7 steps to making sure they don't talk to you when they're 30. That's that often happens as well. And I don't want that. But right now I'm looking at a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old, and we have a great relationship. They've made choices that I'm not super happy with. There's things that they've done that I would do differently and wish that they did differently, but they're living their lives and they have great character. Their friends are good people. They've engaged with us on a daily basis. Still, they want to be with us. Last night we were all in the living room together doing something different, like reading. Brendan's playing a video game. Adara's reading something. Jazz and I are talking on the couch. But they weren't holed up in their rooms. Like, they wanted to be with us, even though we weren't necessarily doing things. And that to me that's kind of a goal. You know, I feel like I look at a time like last night, which is not abnormal, but I look at a time like last night and just go, this is the goal of my parenting, is not to turn them into people like me, but to turn them into people who have good character and who can help guide others. And we just enjoy the presence of one another. And that's a beautiful thing.
It's instruction and inspiration.
And I can't say that what we did works for everyone, but so far we've weathered a lot of storms, and we're still tight. So anyway, I hope that's somewhat instructive for you guys. I felt
that was it was like, well, that's not in the Bible. Let's talk about
let's talk about something else. It's not in the Bible, so we talked about what we think is in the Bible and how to engage with people, not just our kids. But we're engaging with people, and our kids are people too.
Kids are people.
Kids are people too.
Some days they're monsters.
Some days, but we help to guide them into being people.
They're my kids. They're just like me. So.
For better or for worse. Well, thanks for being with us. I hope that if you have any questions about this topic or any other topic, you'd feel free to find us at discoverthegrove.com. You can fill out an information or a contact form there, get more information about the church and engage with us on that in that space, or you can go to the YouTube channel, leave a comment, write to us there. We'd love to interact with you, answer questions, or deal with some topics if you're interested. So until next time, have a great week.
All right, see ya.
Bye-bye.